day after the unfortunate assassination. Uh, I received several emails about that really pertain to protecting a faith-based leader, how to do that in close protection operations. And so I just wanted to throw out a quick uh, informational brief to give you guys basic strategy on that. And so if you sent an email, I promised that this would be out in a video. So here we go. Okay. If you want to get a hold of us, you can get me two ways: contact at michaelmannsecurityservices.com, or you can get me at mmann at fbctn.org, or you can always call me at 615-956-3912. So one more time, contact at michaelmannsecurityservices.com, or at that mmann at fbctn.org, or you can always call, leave me a message. I'll get right back to you. All right. So, hey, what's the first step in close protection? What does that mean for faith-based leaders, like being up close and protecting your leader from an attack? Basic first short-term, or this could be long-term strategy. So if you're trying to do this quickly, put something in place to figure this out. This is also something that is part of your long-term strategy, something you always put in place for your leader, is have some sort of an assessment done. The different types of assessment: number one, a PSA, or physical security assessment. You have your RA, your risk assessment, and then the basic threat assessment, which if you're in a hurry, this is what, or your TA, that's what I suggest. The physical security assessment obviously just gets into everything from who your person or your principal is, all the physical security measures that are in place around that person now, where those vulnerabilities are, and what the recommendations are for improvement. And that PSA does include a threat assessment. Okay. The risk assessment includes a threat assessment, the vulnerability assessment, and then, of course, the impact or consequence if there was an attack to happen. So you're multiplying that threat or likelihood, that vulnerability, and then that impact number, and it tells you the risk number, if or some sort of, like, if it's quantitative, or it might tell you if it's low, medium, high if you're doing qualitative. Both of those take a long time. You don't necessarily need those two, especially if you're in a hurry. So at a minimum, you just want to do a threat assessment. And that threat assessment piece just gets into, number one, who are your threats? And a threat is defined as any indication, circumstance, or event that can cause a loss to the person you're trying to protect. Threat can also be defined as the intent or capability of an adversary that you actually identify inside that threat assessment. So not only do we identify threats, which gets to this next piece, we talk about adversaries, you also would classify the adversaries, because you might find in your threat assessment there are a number of adversaries that might threaten your principal, or might be threatening your principal now based on the information that you guys gather. The threat assessment will also let you know what your protective posture should look like. That is why the threat assessment is so important. Yesterday's unfortunate attack was, especially when we start talking about faith-based leaders, or what we saw yesterday, it's not an anomaly. It does happen, but the likelihood of that of most of the faith-based leaders, and if you're in a church, this happening tomorrow, is probably very low. It's, the likelihood's low, right? But we still want to put this in place because of the impact that we saw yesterday and the consequence. And so because of that, we want to understand what our protective posture needs to be to protect that leader. And then, of course, once we figure out a protective posture, what's that resource identification look like? What does that mean? How do we identify who needs to be here, what we need to do? And that may mean, hey, on Sunday, if you decide to throw this in place, you've got somebody there watching your faith-based leader, but then you've got your other security team members in a layered approach, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute, and they have communication with that close protection person, the person that is actually on your leader. So you want to try to identify the resources that you currently have, or your current resources, and use those folks. If you've got other security team members, they're not trained in close protection, they've never done it, but they're out standing post every day, you can use them as part of this protective posture because they are resources that are already there. And then, of course, we have the layered approach. That layered approach is nothing more than that defensive depth. And all that means is we're going to use multiple lines of defense to actually protect that person, or that pastor, that faith-based leader. And this is where we get into using those available resources. Now, those multiple lines of defense, normally in physical security, we have three layers. That's why we call it a layered approach. We have the outer layer, we have the middle layer, and we have the inner layer. If you're, if you're in church security and you're looking to do this quickly, what that means is the outer layer normally is the parking lot or anything outside. And that's where your folks could be standing there communicating with that close protection professional that's there on that person or that faith-based leader. The middle layer is normally right at the building, so at the doors. Think about where your greeters are. I am not big on locking doors or securing doors so people can't use those to go in. Obviously, they have to go out for egress reasons and fire laws or fire codes. But if you don't have the resources, sometimes you have to do that. So those middle layers are where people are going to be there close to the building. And then, of course, the inner layer is going to be where your where your protectee, where your principal, or where this faith-based leader is going to be, and that's where the close protection professional will be, right there at that inner layer to provide that close protection. Now, understand in these layers, we set up what we call the 4Ds. If you've watched videos from me before or looked at my information, we talk about this. The first D in that is deterrence. And believe it or not, just being physically present, being observant, can deter or psychologically impact the motivation of someone to attack somebody you're trying to protect. So if you're physically present, you're seen, then that can provide deterrence. Number two is some sort of detection early. That's the whole purpose of close protection. You're seeing some sort of adversarial behavior early and you're reporting that, and that comes right after that deterrence piece. The difference between the two is you may not even know you're deterring the person, and then in discovery, obviously, when we have detection, you're going to see something and report it. That third D is delay, slowing down of adversary progress. That is what these layered approaches are for, because it mitigates the impact of the attack, and everybody plays a part in delay. And then the last is deny, which means you're going to keep that bad guy or that adversary away from your principal. That is what the layered approach provides. If you have physical security operations now and you've got, I don't know, 5 to 10 folks on your security team and you're already doing this, you have the ability to provide this protection now. And then, of course, the last piece is balance protection. And here's what that means. What impact do you have on the environment? Because of what happened yesterday, I think, again, I've received emails from churches, and then I had some phone calls and texts yesterday from government folks, local, like state government, asking about protection because of upcoming events. And one thing I would say, depending on what kind of protection that you are providing, and if this is for a church, this is a big deal. Like, how is your setup going to impact the environment or the mission of the church? And so are you going to use an overt, like uniform folks and where people can see guns? Or is it going to be very low profile protection where everybody's in plain clothes and you are present but not overbearing, and that still provides deterrence, but that does not conflict with the mission. So what does your physical presence look like, and what does that mean based on who you are protecting? How does that impact them? And then again, what is the mission of the organization? In the church, we have to be careful. The mission is to get everybody in there, to make everybody feel comfortable, and of course to hear the gospel. So we need to be careful about what our profile looks like and what we implement there. Okay. All right. If you have any questions, you can always, again, contact us, contact at michaelmannsecurityservices.com, or you can get me at mmann@fbctn.org, or you can always call me 615-956-3912. Remember, all of this is about prevention, not response. Physical protection, especially close protection, is about seeing something early, reporting it, psychologically impacting the motivation of the adversary, and then hopefully that makes that adversary focus on another target. Because again, as you guys know, if you've listened to some of our behavior threat detection stuff, you're probably not going to stop the attack. You're just stopping the attack on the person you're trying to protect. They'll move to a weaker target, okay, or someone more vulnerable. All right, know how to get a hold of us. I hope to hear from you. Shoot us an email, and then always, obviously, if you need training on this, we provide that. All right, folks, remember, this is about prevention, not response.